Councillor Gilman's on her way. Councillor Hayfield, have we had any apologies or anything from Councillor Hayfield? You're okay? We'll wait to see if Councillor Hayfield does turn up. Okay, it's good to see so many people in the gallery. I'll kick off by doing the evacuation procedure. We are not anticipating a drill tonight, so if you could expect it in the evening. So if there is a fire alarm, it is a real one. So can I ask people to please leave in an orderly manner? 2 exits through the way you came in, or just behind you there. The forming up point is in the car park. Please do stay there and wait until you're dismissed by either the responsible officer or the fire and rescue services, because we don't send people back into the building looking for you if you decided to go home, as it were. So we're not expecting a drill. So we've all back on. Apologies for absence, members away on official business. I have apologies from Councillor Simpson, who usually chairs this, that's why I'm chairing it, and he's being subbed by Councillor Riley. Thank you, Dave. Apologies from Councillor Bell, being subbed by Councillor Clues. Thank you. And apologies from Councillor Riri, who's being subbed by Councillor Barnett. Okay. Do we have any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests? I saw Councillor Riley, Councillor Riley first, and then I'll come to Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. I have a non-pecuniary interest in 2 applications. I'm a resident of Lee Marston, and I am local member for Lord.
Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. I'm declaring an interest in the Wharton development, which I believe is 6I on the agenda, Church Lane, Wharton. I have chaired the neighbourhood planning group, and as such, I've been involved in a lot of consultations and a lot of discussion with local residents, and indeed have been involved in discussions with local residents again. I personally cannot escape the feeling that Wharton has suffered significantly in terms of development, and I can't keep an open mind on this, so I will not be voting or speaking in the debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any others? See any more? Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Nichols.
Hi, yeah. I just want to say that I don't need to declare an interest. I'm chair of Holsworth Parish Council, which includes Wharton, and there's been a lot of discussion about Rule 6 party involvement, but I have deliberately kept neutral so that I can have a neutral opinion. So I don't need to declare an interest. I want that stated, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watford. Okay. Right. We have a number of speakers tonight. We'll come to them as we come to each of the items. The first one is on application 0296 Spinny Cost, but we'll come to that when the speakers are due. When you're due, we'll announce the item. If the speakers can come down to the centre table there, and then we'll explain what the process is for public speaking. Next one on the agenda is the minutes of the board meeting that was held on the 1st of September. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at those minutes? Is everybody happy with those minutes, or does anyone have any comments on those minutes?
Second.
Okay. All those in favour? Unanimous. Those minutes are carried. Thank you. I'm going to stick with the agenda, but I'm going to change the order in which we do the applications. So that I think most of you good folk up in the gallery are here for the Wharton thing. So rather than leave it right to the end, I'll bring that one forward so we can discuss that and debate that and have a look at that, and then you can have the rest of your evening back rather than have to sit here all evening. But the first one on the agenda is the Osprey Neighbourhood Plans. And the recommendation is that we move that to public consultation. Are there any comments on that? Councillor Jarvis.
I'll move it.
Next, second it.
Second. All those in favour? Nice and simple, that's unanimous, so we've moved plan. 300 pages and with the 700 pages there. Okay. So we now move on to planning applications. As I say, I'm going to move the water one to the start because it's actually the last one. But I'm going to actually move it to the start. So we're going to jump straight to application 0155, which is the land south of Wharton recreation grounds in Orchard Road in Wharton. Just before I hand this over to the officers, I will say, most of you will be aware this has gone to appeal. So actually all this will go, so we won't be we can't decide it, unfortunately, as we would normally on a planning application, because it has to go to the inspector. But what we will do is we will do a minded to approve or a minded to refuse, but the decision will actually sit with that inspector.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Okay, thank you. As Councillor Watson's already mentioned, this application's been presented to the Planning and Development Board following notification from the planning inspector that the applicant has lodged an appeal against non-determination. A public inquiry is scheduled for the beginning of December. Whilst the council is no longer able to determine the application, it's necessary that yourselves as members confirm the case that the council will present to the planning inspector to hear the appeal. The report that you see in front of you sets out all the relevant facts in terms of the case and the material considerations in respect of that. As you will see from the agenda, there are two sides to this application, and there is a balance that needs to be undertaken both for the application in support of it and against it. A site visit took place on the 26th of September and a note has been circulated to all members. The application site comprises of 6.37 hectares of land located directly to the west of the settlement of Wharton. The site is currently in agricultural use and made up of one field parcel, as you can see from the plan in front of you. The site is generally sloping with a gradual fall to the west and north towards the southeast. The site is defined by Church Road along the north and then Orton Road to the south, with the recently constructed cornfields development to the east of it and the recreational ground that exists already to the northeast. The application is in an outline stage with all matters reserved apart from access to the site. Vehicle access is proposed off Church Road with pedestrian link indicated from Church Road and another one, albeit not within
Any
the
chance
entire.
of being able to hear what's going on?
Someone that's.
So is that someone online who can't hear what's being said?
I don't know, I didn't hear what you said, they're muted, so the ones online. So I don't know who said that.
Okay, so can I just check those online? Can you hear us okay? Yeah, I'm getting thumbs up and nods. So yeah, I think sure, Mr. Hall. Okay, Andrew.
Okay, sorry about that. In terms of the considerations for and against the application, if we firstly consider the local plan and LP2, which sets out the distribution of development and in a settlement hierarchy. The local plan indicates that the development within the borough should be proportionally distributed in accordance with that settlement hierarchy, and Wharton is identified as a category 4 settlement in that hierarchy. That hierarchy is categories 1 to 4 in terms of settlements. That says that development should be proportionate In the case of Wharton, that's usually no more than 10 units. This application to 110 units, and therefore it wouldn't meet those tests. There's also been growth in the village over the last few years, which is the current proposal would increase this up to 81% rise in the village, size of the village since 2016. So from a quantitative element, it is an increase. If we look at the actual village in terms of the range of services, those are also relatively limited too, with a primary school, a public house, a working men's club, one remaining shop and post office in the centre of the village, and a village hall. There's also the recreational facilities adjacent to the church. Other than that, the facilities are relatively limited in the village. It's concluded that the site, in terms of access, is limited to main shops, services and job opportunities, and would be heavily reliant on the private motor vehicle. And it's concluded that the proposal is not proportionate to the status of the village and the adopted settlement hierarchy. In terms of morphology, and by that I mean how the village has changed over the years, there is concern by officers that this would be seen as an appendage to the village, both in landscape, visual terms, and in terms of the settlement morphology, there would be a harm there. In terms of cohesion, because of the social cohesion, because of it being an appendage on the outer limits of the village, there's also concern there, especially in relation to the proposal would provide affordable housing. And this would be on the outskirts, even further away from the main services. With affordable housing, you'd try and get it within the centre of the village where there's less travel, less walking distance, etc. So there is that concern there as well. As you'll see from the agenda, there's also the key fact that this is used as agricultural land, and the development here would lead to the permanent loss of that agricultural land. Unlike renewables, which are for a temporary period of time, this would be permanent, and therefore this must be weighed against the proposal. In terms of the cumulative weight, these harms are all significant. Now we move to the other side of the debate, and that is the things in support of the proposal, because there is a matter of judgment here. An initial matter in support of the application is whether the Borough Council can provide a 5-year supply of housing. The applicant indicates that we only have a 1.1 supply of housing. The council acknowledges that it does not have a 5-year supply of housing, and that the figures are within a range of 1.5 to 2.2 years, and it accepts that this is materially below the 5 years required. The council would attribute significant weight to this benefit, providing those houses. The proposal would also provide up to 44 affordable dwellings. I've indicated about the sustainability and cohesion of those affordable dwellings, and therefore we would give moderate weight to those. There's also benefit in terms of providing biodiversity net gain, and the scheme will provide this throughout the landscaping that's proposed. From an economic perspective, again, there would be economic benefits through the development of the housing. However, this would be for a limited period of time due to the temporary benefit of it, and therefore only limited weight could be attributed to this. When you consider the harms against the benefits, we as officers considered there is a balance. There is a tilted balance here because we do have a lack of 5-year supply, and that needs to be considered when coming to the balance. However, it's considered that the harms caused do significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits in this tilted balance, and I'd say for a number of reasons. Firstly, the significant weight of the harms and demonstrably outweighs those benefits. Secondly, the settlement hierarchy set out in the local plan is a strategic approach to delivering the sustainable development in the borough, and therefore it is important. And there are some very real harms caused to the character and appearance of Wharton and to its morphology, cohesion and sense of place. On balance, taking into account these factors, it's considered that the proposal would be contrary to the development plan when taken together as a whole, along with the NPPF. And in light of this assessment, it is recommended that the application be refused if we had been the decision-making authority.
Thank you. So, right, we've got two speakers on this item. Take Laurie Phipps first. Colleague will explain the rules on public speaking.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Chair, members, first of all, can I congratulate Andrew on his new role and thank him and the members who visited us recently, which did coincide with the speed watch that we were doing. So thank you for visiting the site. We've made arguments before, and these are on record. We'd like at this time to reiterate that the development conflicts with the adopted North Warwickshire local plan and the Polesworth Parish Council neighbourhood plan, specifically the plan-led expectation that category 4 villages grow organically and at a modest scale, as Andrew has pointed out. Inspectors have already considered what is proportionate here. In Curlew Close in June 2023, 28 dwellings were found to be a significant expansion on the village edge and contrary to the local plan. We argue that the same reasoning should apply and that 110 houses is vastly significant in compared to the Curlew Close developments. Cumulatively, Wharton has absorbed a very large amount of housing, as Andrew has pointed out. We estimate that we've gone from around 500 homes to in excess of 800, but I bow to Andrew's percentages and what he's recorded. I'd like to talk about connections to actually get to and from Wharton. We have daytime buses on the 785, 786 corridor. They're not even listed online as actually stopping at Wharton. They're about every 2 hours, and there's no public transport for any of the residents of Wharton to get directly with one bus to a GP. The developers constantly refer to Polesworth railway station. What they fail to mention is that it has one northbound train at 0648, 6 days a week. We assume that they act on the premise that people leave Polesworth but they don't come back. For those that visited Church Road this weekend, due to football matches on the grounds at the recreation ground, it did compromise. Thank you. Compromise safety and amenity, and I would urge the council to look at this issue no matter the outcome of the upcoming inquiry. This proposal conflicts with the development plan. It's not proportionate to Wharton and it would worsen existing pressures. We realise that this is in the hands of the inspectorate, but we ask you to show your feelings and vote with us on this issue. Chair, members, we are working hard to build a community in Wharton, not a conurbation. Please help us do that.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So do we have any questions for the speaker? Mr. Derricks.
Yeah. You mentioned public transport and safety issues. one of the problems that I know has happened in the past with Barton is for the transport for getting children to school. You know, you have a school in the village, but as the children grow bigger, they can't stay there, they have to go to Polesworth or to schools elsewhere. Do you think that it is safe for pupils to travel from Barton to the local schools if there is not sufficient public transport for them to do so? Do you think that the extra traffic that will ensue with public cars taking children to schools will be further hazard to their safety?
That's that we in Speedwatch there is a set of records showing the speeds on all of the major roads to and from. The children actually assemble on Church Road to get picked up to go to the Polesworth School. So there is a problem with children arriving from various places to be taken to Polesworth School there. It's a 60-mile-an-hour road, which does create some problems. Sorry, it's a 40-mile-an-hour road. That people forget and treat it as a 60-mile-an-hour road, as you may have seen when you visited. I do think there's a problem, but it's an increasing problem as well. This year in reception, we had 30 children for the first time in our primary school, and places are limited, and we also have limited places in nursery, and that is also increasing. As I've said, we've had over 300 new homes built in the last 10 years, and the children that are now coming through, that pressure is going to continue. I do know that some of the children that go to Polesworth School don't always get the bus and sometimes miss the bus, and that does involve them then having to walk or get taxis, and you often see children walking along a very busy main road. So yes, it is a concern, and I do worry about it, especially as my neighbour's child is starting Polesworth School this year.
Thank you very much for that answer.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Humphries.
I know we need houses, but it's the wrong thing in the wrong place. I mean, I was under the impression that there's 606 houses in the across up to building Copeland in the parish. And in this time, if I go back to when they've started building the hills, and then you've got Elms Court. And
Sorry, Councillor Humphries, is it a question for the speaker or is that debate?
no, sorry, I can't make it for the speaker.
Yeah, if you could, because I'm going to enter into the
That
debate.
my embarrassment.
Sorry.
So there's 325 houses now. I mean, and I know you've just been asked a question about schooling and that. One of the problems with the school is that they extended this. I'm talking about the big school, and eventually, after the debacle of education and highways, dealing with the primary schools, we've got the temporary, etc. How big? What I'm concerned about is how big does a school have to be before we stop adding to it? Because there's 1,616 places at that school at the moment, and I don't. And I've got two grandsons that go there, so I fully understand the problems of that school. And I noticed reading this that they're asking the amount of money they're asking for. It's talking about extensions to the school as well. Do you have any comments about that?
We are worried about the S106 money that the schools, both the primary school and the Polesworth School, would actually receive to compensate for the number of children that we're getting. At the moment, with the houses that we've got, they're not fully occupied, and yet still our primary school is full. There is a surplus, but this year the reception was 30 children. As these houses get fuller and we start seeing small families moving in, the schools are going to start being put under pressure, and I don't know if there's going to be enough money to extend them. I don't know about if they can be extended, how far they can be extended. I do know that people are talking about it all the time in the village, and one of the things that we get asked as the Residents Association by people thinking about buying here is, what's the school situation like? We get that all the time, and I know that there's been pressure on schools. I think our school in Morton, the primary school, has done an excellent job. I think the new classrooms that we've got on a temporary basis are brilliant, and they're having a really positive impact on the children, and all of the staff there have done a fantastic job. But it doesn't mean that we can take more and more children. And as I say, with the houses that are empty at the moment, We've got lots of space to take people in Woodwinds, in Brookmills, and also, I believe, in some of the cornfields developments that are still for sale and empty in the case of Woodwinds and Brookmills. And they're going to fill up with families. They are 3 and 4 bedroom homes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Close.
Thank you. You mentioned the doctor's surgery. I asked this question because I sit on a PPG board at doctor's surgery. Is your doctor's surgery under pressure already? And how many doctors have you got in your surgery?
I don't know the numbers of doctors. I have been in touch with the surgery asking if they could provide evidence from the statements of case that we'll be putting in under the Rule 6. They've not responded as yet, but speaking to residents, one of the complaints that we have is it's a nightmare to get an appointment. But not only that, they also can't get there because there's no public transport. So we do have that issue, but they've not been able to tell us the capacity. I think there's at least 4 doctors, but as I say, appointments are scarce.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for speaker? No, continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
We have got one other speaker who's online, Mr. Duncy.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Great.
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Am I okay to
You've
start?
got- You've got 3 minutes to start. At the 2-minute marker, I'll remind you you've got 1 minute left. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, thank you all for the opportunity to speak this evening. As the officer's report confirms, an appeal has been lodged against non-determination of this application, and obviously the final decision now rests with the planning inspector appointed by the planning inspectorate. Planning officers now accept there is a considerable shortfall with supply between 1.5 and 2.2 years of housing left. Officers now agree that the tilted balance applies. This means that the policies in the development plan most important for determining the scheme are deemed out of date and the presumption in favour of sustainable development is engaged. For decision making, this means that planning permission should be granted unless any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the framework's policies taken as a whole. Members will be aware that the site isn't in the Greenbelt, nor is it subject to designations which the NPPF offers particular protection. Richmond consider Warton to be entirely sustainable location for the proposed development, and this will be shown in evidence at appeal. The fact that council has granted consent for housing developments in the last 10 years, including the adjacent cornfield development, indicates the local authority accept Warton is a sustainable location to meet housing needs. We note residents' concerns regarding infrastructure provision. However, as the officer report sets out, a package of contributions will be secured via a Section 106 agreement if planning permission is awarded. These will cover items such as open space, education, libraries and healthcare. But in addition to this, the Highways Authority have requested over 1.1 million to enhance walking and cycling connections to Polesworth, plus over 238,000 for public transport improvements. These contributions have not been assessed in the committee report, and I believe they are highly material in your consideration of the application this evening. It is our view that the off-site highway contributions squarely address the reasons for refusal outlined. It is vital that members have regard to these when considering the application. Overall, the officer report confirms that statutory consultees have confirmed there are no technical grounds to refuse this application. The significant benefits of the provision of 110 market and affordable homes to contribute towards the significant housing shortfall in the borough, along with on-site B&G open space improvements, in addition to highways contributions discussed previously, significantly and demonstrably outweigh any identified harms mentioned in the officer's report. In these circumstances, the NPPF is very clear that planning permission should be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy, any questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you very much. We will enter into the debate now. Who wants to go first? Councillor Humphries.
Well, I think that was poppycock because the site is not sustainable. and the houses may have been going in there, as I say, 325, that must have before. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm quite happy to save any more wattle and propose that we take the recommendation and refuse the application.
Thank you. I saw Councillor Phillips first, then Councillor Watkins, then Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to second that recommendation, Chair. I'm
Can't hear you, sorry.
happy to second that recommendation, Chair. I think we should be duty bound to sort of start securing and supporting the smaller villages, and I think that North Warwickshire is made up of small villages, and it's part of our character. And I think we start to degrade the character of the whole borough when we start to let these villages are ruined by overdevelopment. And so I'm happy to second the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Councillor Waffles?
Yeah, some of you have heard this example of mine before, but as a healthcare worker, I'm going to use it again. Imagine that you have no transport and you live in Wharton, in one of these new affordable houses, maybe. How affordable would this be? Or how ethical would it be for you to be lying in your sick bed, wanting an appointment at a GP surgery that you can't get into anyway, and you manage to get an appointment, but that appointment's got to tie in with a 2-hour wait for a bus to get into Polesworth, to then get a connection bus, to then get up to the surgery in Dordon, whilst being poorly, and tie in with that appointment time, because it's got to be connectable. Go to the appointment if you're lucky, this is, and then do the return journey whilst being poorly. And I just want to use that as an example, because that would take a whole day out of somebody's life whilst being poorly. It's just unbelievable to think that if you put in affordable housing anywhere in a remote area that is already struggling for all of the amenities. Andrew's mentioned the few little things that are in Wharton already. Where are they going to get all their weekly shop from? Where are they going to get, we've already mentioned the schools. I put an FOI in for the local area a couple of years ago, and we were already at capacity for all of the high schools in the local area. That's without any further developments. So it's going to take a hell of a lot of 106 money. And by the way, we all know that that doesn't come in instantly as soon as the diggers go in the ground. So what happens in the meantime? And I just really feel that, these little villages, they've had enough done to them, and it's about time that we all stood up and said, right, okay, yes, we need houses, but it's got to be in the right place. And as I said, as Councillor Humphrey said, this is not the right place.
Thank you, Councillor Waffles. Councillor Jarvis?
Thank you, Chair. My hand went up to second Councillor Humphreys. I think it is overdevelopment and it doesn't have the infrastructure to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, and I'm grateful for Emma for what she's just mentioned as well. Listening to the speaker as well, you could see even from the public's applause that the limited facilities, the increase that this would put on the people there, especially those with affordable housing, will be certainly lack of transport. As you just alluded to, the buses, the trains, etc. And I did see one area, there was a potential rat run from an estate, and I think the problems that would cause to the people that live in that estate. So with that, and certainly with the schools, etc., and the doctors, yes, I'm certainly one of many members here that certainly would recommend for what the planners put forward for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Derricks?
Thank you. It's already been said tonight that Barton is a sustainable location, and that you've had, what was it, 300 and something houses already, and that because you've had those, this won't make any difference. That's the intimation of it. And I think the very fact that Barton already has those extra houses, putting such a strain on the services that they have, which haven't improved that much over the last 10 years. I think that is a very strong argument for saying that this is inappropriate and that we should not be supporting it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. I was privileged enough as a Deputy Mayor to walk the Walk Carnival. It was amazing how much the village has changed, and I have to say that it was quite some years before I'd actually seen the changes in the village. I'm obviously Borough Councillor for Dordon. Dordon and Polesworth are due in the local plan to have 2,000 houses. That was a huge delivery for what the council needed to provide. As a result of government pulling funding for the A5, there's a number of sites that have not been able to deliver the houses that were promised. And again, it's all about infrastructure, schools, education, transport. So as a consequence of that, the pulling of transport and the undelivery of some sites, this has obviously come forward and our housing land supply has diminished. But that doesn't mean that just because something can't be delivered, that other places should suffer. And my worry was always, as Dordon Borough Councillor, even with a local plan where we were supposed to deliver 2,000 houses, was that it wouldn't be cohesive and that it would be delivered as an appendage, which is exactly what Mr. Collinson has actually talked about. So to me, sticking something constantly onto fields in the village without significant infrastructure is a no-go. I don't think that's the answer. Just because our housing numbers at the minute aren't achieving what our housing land supply requires, I don't think this is the answer at all. So I, again, would be minded to not support this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ridley. Any other comments? Okay, I mean, I think it would be remiss if I didn't mention, I mean, obviously the counter argument, and I listened to, I've heard everything that everybody said and I understand it because we was up at the site visit, and that I wouldn't want kids walking along that lane myself, and I don't think the infrastructure money is possibly enough. I think it would take significantly more infrastructure money, S106, and as Councillor Waffles quite rightly says, that money doesn't come day one. So there's always a delay before we can make those improvements. We don't have a pot of money whereby it would be nice if we could make all those infrastructure improvements first before we actually built any houses. Unfortunately, we're not in that position. However, as an authority, we are under significant pressure. The new housing targets from the new government are making it incredibly difficult for this. Having said all of that, I do agree, communities should be protected. Communities should be looked after. But I think we need to be very mindful as an authority that we are going to be under pressure for these types of sites because we do have a housing number that we've been given, and we're going to have to look for sites that won't be popular for people as to where we can put those houses, but they must be in sustainable, proper locations. We can't just put them anywhere. So with that in mind, I've had a kind of approval of Councillor Humphreys has agreed to agree the motion. Councillor Phillips has seconded the motion. And I ask for all those in favour for the motion as printed in the paper. And I'll remind you, we can only mind two. The decision will actually be taken out of our hands, or have been taken out of our hands, because it's gone to appeal. the recommendation minded to refuse? All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you all for those.
Sorry, Chair, could I just mention it wasn't unanimous because I'm not voting.
Well, unanimous to those, unanimous to those who could vote. I'll put it that way.
Thank you.
Okay. For the Walton residents who don't need to stay, if you want to kind of leave us now, you're quite welcome to stay. Thank you. Councillor Watford.
There is another application for Wharton, which is next. I don't know if they want to stay for that. It's the school, but sorry, just thought I'd mention it.
Very good point. Yeah, you can say for that. Yeah, we've got street side and stuff. We will go. We'll nip straight back to the first application, which, if you quite rightly say, Councillor Waffles, is for the siting of a temporary classroom at the Church of England Primary School on Mullet Road. So
Thank you.
Mr. Collison.
Yeah, this application is not our application to determine. It's Warwickshire County Council that has submitted as an application that they will determine, and they've invited this council to make representations on that decision. The building, the temporary building, is at the front of the site. As members are aware, there were proposals for a permanent extension to the school, and these have been amended, thus not requiring the submission of an application, and consequently the work is already underway, with its completion due before the end of 2025. This application is for to allow for temporary arrangements. It's reasonably provided that any provision is limited to 12 months. It's recommended that this council does not object to this temporary building that's in front of you.
Thank you. Any comments, members of the board? Oh, Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think one thing with the temporary units is that they tend to become permanent. And I'll just liken you to the school in Atherstone. They've been there 6 years now. And whilst we're going to support it because we need education for the children, I think we need to be saying that you have got to proceed with the permanent ones, because porter cabins are what they say. They're temporary. The kids don't like them. The teachers don't like them. And I think we should just underline that and say that they are what they are. They are temporary, until the permanent accommodation is done.
Thank you. Sir Collison, did you want to come back on that?
No, Chairman. The building's there for a temporary period of time, and works are underway in terms of the permanent extension, I believe.
So as the permanent works started, so they have started. So this is literally just a temporary solution.
Yeah.
And do we have assurances that it will be removed at the end once the permanent works are done?
It depends on the outcome of this application. We've suggested it be for 12 months, but it is for Warwickshire County Council to heed that advice and put a condition on limiting it to that if necessary.
Because I guess the risk is that they have a temporary classroom, build a permanent classroom, and then retain the temporary classroom just for sites or just for classrooms. But that's a county council.
It is, and they would need to, if a condition is put on, they'd need to then reconsult, and then we can have a say on that again if necessary.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to be able to talk about a development in Wharton now, actually. I would support this development. I appreciate it's a temporary classroom. I've taught in temporary classrooms. They haven't got a lot better than they were, actually. But yes, I fully accept that we would like to see something permanent in the end. But the children are coming, the school is growing. This is absolutely needed. So I would like to propose acceptance of this recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Dirks.
I would agree with everything that has just been said by both of the previous speakers. I've also taught in temporary classrooms. They might have improved, but they haven't improved that much. With the experiences that we've had locally with temporary classrooms, I think in our response to the county council, we need to make it very, very clear that Will would not be happy to support an extension to this 12 million. As they have started building already, that shouldn't happen. But I would like us to make that very clear that we do not intend them to continue for longer. Unfortunately, locally, we had to extend the use of the classrooms. I don't think that is acceptable.
Thank you. Any more comments? Councillor Humphries.
There is some slight difference on this. At least you are seeing the building being built. I went many years ago with Road to talk to the headmaster at Atherstone School, and I know that's not about the subject we're talking now. And those should be there for 2 years. The other thing I went with Ray to talk to people at the previous school is they've only built it for 600 kids, and it was already got 600 kids, and we were putting houses up here, there, and everywhere. So there's a big problem in education we can't control. I do realise that, and that's now 6 years on. We've still got temporary classrooms, and I do believe there's still not an application to replace those with the school at the moment. The one thing about this application is the school building is going up at the same time as building the temporary classroom. The trouble is, if this does go through from an appeal process, that temporary classroom will probably need to be there. And it's a terrible thing to say that, but possibly. Let's hope we lose temporary classroom in the near future and we don't have to worry about another load of kids coming from another side. Thank you.
Thank you. And as both you and I both know, unfortunately, the DFE and the way they allocate school places is a bit of a strange one. They will only allocate for current numbers, not potential growth or not new growth.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I've had a recommendation for approval. Seconded by Councillor Wapples. All those in favour? Yeah. Unanimously. Thank you. Right. Residents of Gorton, you can now leave us. The club's open, off we go.
It's not Jim there. Jim.
You can't get there, there's no public transport.
Okay, all right.
Well, they send out soon locally. Everybody needs. Oh, I see it. 2:30 last year, 3:30.
Okay, right. I'm going to move us on to the next planning application 6B is 0315, and this is for some works to a tree that's protected by a TPO that's on borough land. Yeah, thank you.
This application is for works to 6 protected trees, as you can see here. They are offered, and the proposal is to pollard them. The recommendation is that consent be granted for those works. Nothing further to add.
Any comments to that?
Yeah, I'd just like to move this forward now. This work is necessary to keep those trees safe and should support it.
Thank you, Councillor Livingston. I think I heard.
Those are the recommendations.
I think I heard Councillor Phillips second the recommendation. That's the words come out anyway. All those in favour? Okay, that is carried. Okay. Right, next item on the agenda is application 0296, and this is for City Cottage, Common Lane, Ellsworth.
Yeah, thank you. this application is for a change of use from a house, a C3 use, to a children's care home for up to 4 children. The site is accessed from Grandon Lane and then Common Lane. We have, as you'll see from the agenda, there have been representations from neighbours in section 7, objections relating to noise, privacy concerns, antisocial behaviour, etc. As you can also see from the observations element within the report, in terms of noise impacts at section D from A10 onwards, and residential amenity impacts, these are protected by quite a robust noise management plan that the applicants have submitted, which allows for complaints from neighbours. It allows for the procedure for limiting outdoor play areas as well. You wouldn't get that on a residential property, but it's considered necessary to do it in this instance, working with the applicant to ensure that there isn't a detrimental impact on residential properties in the area. The recommendation is that the proposal will not have an impact on the surrounding properties, subject to those conditions, especially condition 4 in terms of the noise management plan, and therefore it's recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. We have one speaker, I believe, on this item. So she. Welcome to the planning board. My colleague will explain public speaking.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. At the 2-minute marker, I'll remind you you've got 1 minute outstanding. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you. You already heard the officer's summary of the proposal, so I will focus on why this application deserves your support. First, the community benefit is clear. This home will provide a safe, nurturing environment for vulnerable children aged 8 to 17 under 24/7 professional supervision. It directly supports North Warwickshire's commitment to inclusive, socially responsible development. Second, the intensity of use is reduced. Unlike the current 5-bed dwelling, the current home will accommodate only 4 children. The structured routines and continuous staff presence, the impacts on noise, traffic, and behavior will be lower than a typical family home. Third, safeguards and oversights are built in. The home will be regulated by Ofsted with strict safeguarding protocols, staff training, and visitor controls. A full management plan has been incorporated into the planning statement to ensure transparency and accountability. On highways and amenity, the transport statement confirms 5 off-street parking spaces and no more than 8 vehicles movement per day. Environmental Health has accepted the noise management plan, which includes quiet hours, staff supervised outdoor activity, secure fencing, and double grazing. We are willing to accept further conditions if required. On neighborhood character and reassurance, there are no external alterations, no additional overlooking, and no signage. The property will continue to look and feel like a family home. Boundary gaps will be rectified and the town maintained to Ofsted standards. Finally, on future expansion, this application is limited to 4 children. We would accept the condition preventing intensification without for the consent. In summary, this is a modest policy compliant proposal that delivers genuine community benefit with strong safeguards and no adverse impact. I respectfully invite members to support the officer's recommendation.
3 minutes are up.
Right, thank you. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. Understand you comment that there'll be 8 vehicle movements a day. What parking facility? Because you've got people employed there 24/7.
They will be employed 24/7.
Yeah.
There will be 4 staffs.
Yeah.
Which would be fully qualified.
Yeah. But where do they park? Is the parking facility?
There's ample parking space. There are 5 car spaces within the driveway, which is off-street parking. And, you only need 2 car parking space for, according to the planning. So, yeah.
Could I just ask Mr. Collinson to
Yes.
to show where the car parking is, please?
The parking areas at that's the main dwelling, and there is ample parking within the front area here. For a number of cars.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the speaker? I've got one question. You mentioned about, and obviously we understand that this is the need for children's care homes, etc. Is it purely for Warwickshire, or will you take children from outside the county?
I believe it would be national, but more from Warwickshire. It all depends on what sort of occupants would be received.
It prompted some questions, Councillor Parsons, and then come to Councillor.
Sorry, I'd forgotten I wanted to ask a question. If I may, you've got four normal residents, as it were, and then you talk of a high dependency resident, possibly. Is that in addition to the 4? And could you give us some ideas of what the high dependency might mean?
Okay, sorry, is there a hearing loop?
Sorry, I'll shout up.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've got a hearing problem, sorry.
No, that's fine. The accommodation, I believe, is for 4 children.
That's right.
And then there is a possible high dependency.
Which is included within that.
That's included in the 4. Thank you.
Yes.
Could you give us any idea of the nature of the high dependency that might necessitate?
They would have mental issues, possibly. They would have other health issues. Possibly they all come in different, sort of issues, but they would be staff would be well qualified to deal with this. So they are vulnerable children. The staff would be very much qualified to deal with them.
Chair. Yeah, just have I got it right? In the event of high dependency child, there is a commitment to extra staffing. Have I got that right?
There might be an extra staff involved, depending on the Ofsted one. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
They are very rare occasionally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wattles.
Yeah, it was just to come back on your point, actually, from a care of vulnerable children point of view, it's very common that they go out of area for the nature of the reasons sometimes that they need to be homed. So it's very likely that they may not be local for that reason, but that's just because if they're vulnerable, it might be that they need to be removed from the area that they've come from. Can I just come back on a point as well? Just for balance, there would be nothing stopping a family of 4 with 4 vulnerable children moving into that house already. So I think we have to bear that in mind as well, that, it could be exactly the same, but without the restrictions.
Yeah, no, agreed. So
That's the balance, just to have that in.
I'm just very conscious, but questions for the speaker and then we'll come to the debate. So, any more questions for the speaker? Can't see any. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll enter the debate. Well, thanks for that, because I kind of hadn't necessarily correlated that. You just kind of think, let's use them locally because that makes more sense, but obviously that's a very valid point. Any comments in the debate on this one? Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, those of us who've served on the county council know that a number of children have had to go out of Warwickshire, in actual fact, to find accommodation in this sense and care. And so, in many ways, it's a welcome move that accommodation is being provided in Warwickshire, because for some time it was not, and this is good. As Councillor Wapples has said, sometimes it's important for a child to be removed from the area for a particular reason or a particular sort of associations that have developed. But where children can be kept within the area and supported and given help there, it's good that is done, and that facility is there. I'd also like to mention that Polesworth has now a long tradition of association with group homes who have come big time into Polesworth, and I'm reminded of this in the summer because just at the back of my garden fence, it's a group homes establishment, and they have lovely afternoon sing-songs and the like at the back of the house, which are usually very entertaining. And that's there. And actually, Group Homes has integrated very well into Polesworth and has become a major part of the community. They have homes dotted all over the Polesworth, some of them in family home situations exactly as this is. So I do think this is something which has a precedent in Polesworth, and I would like to support this this venture and actually support the proposal recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have any other comments, or do I have a seconder for the proposal?
You second, also.
Councillor Humphries, second. Any other comments before we move to the vote? No, that's it. Okay, so we've got a proposal and a seconder. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next application. Let's put the microphone on. Moving on to the next application, which is 0415, which is the Bushett Shop at Glenside, Ansley Lane in Arley. And this is for a number of properties.
Yeah, thank you. This application is a proposed outline application for the demolition of the existing buildings and erection of 6 houses, 1 bungalow with a new access. The report in front of you is for information, and it does not include any representations or consultations. It is more to bring it to your attention, and then a determination report will come back at a later board. As you can see from the agenda, there is a layout of the properties. This shows 3 properties fronting Ansley Lane, with the demolition of all the properties, all the existing buildings on site, the creation of a new access from Ansley Lane with 3 2-storey houses and 1 bungalow. There are some of the elevations showing the adjacent pub, and then the elevations of the houses there. Those are, again, this is the other side with the existing dwelling, existing bungalow, showing it in the street, and the bungalow at the rear. As I say, it's more for information, and we will bring a report back to you in due course, with consultations and representations and a full assessment of the application. But today and tonight was more about giving you the opportunity to look at the plans and, if necessary, make any comments without prejudice before it comes again for determination. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have one speaker on this, Mr. Siddiq, who I believe is online. Mr. Siddiq, my colleague will explain public speaking, although I know you've spoken in front of this board before.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. At the 2-minute marker, I'll remind you you've got 1 minute. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors and Chair. We were previously involved on this site, as people are aware, and what the client has done is pushed it forward to a developer who's looking at purchasing the site subject to planning. We had a pre-application with Jeff Brown on 2 occasions for this application, where we looked at the overall massing, location of road, and the overall layout of the site. During that pre-application, what we did was we negotiated in relation to the front properties being slightly set lower down, in relation to the properties to the rear of the site being slightly higher in space arrangement. We try to keep the local principal architecture, but at this moment in time in the outline application, we are looking at the location of the buildings, their massing. So we've put it under an outline application for demolition of existing buildings and erection of 6 houses and 1 bungalow. We are in the process of doing a noise report, which has been asked by the planning officer, and a desktop study for a soil report, and then also a road safety audit, which are in process at the moment. So what we're predominantly looking at is 2 pairs of semi-detached houses to the rear, with 1 detached and 1 bungalow, and then to the front there's 1 pair of semi-detached houses and 1 detached property. They consist, the semi-detached and detached consist of 3 bedrooms, 1 study, living room at the front, with a kitchen and dining to the rear of the property. We've looked at the distances to neighbouring properties and made sure we're not getting any overlooking or any right of light issues, and this was looked at with Jeff Brown during the pre-application itself.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. So we just wanted feedback and wanted to coordinate with, because the client's instructed us clearly, Jack Gilder, he's asked us to look at this application to make sure that the local community is happy with it, and that it ticks all the boxes for the councillors, to make sure we're providing a much needed residential scheme within the area, within the vicinity, of a smaller scale, on an existing site that's obviously created issues previously before. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Mr. Councillor Parsons.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Stick. We'll move to the debate. But as you know, this is an outline application. This is not a detailed application. We've been asked to note the report as presented this evening. Councillor Parsons.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, I was getting ahead of myself there, but right. I noticed in the recommendation that it proposes that we note this application and actually carry out the site visit. I think that's an excellent recommendation, and I would like to propose it.
Thank you. Any other got Councillor Fowler and then Councillor Jarvis?
Chair, I'd just like to second that proposal of Councillor Parsons.
Thank you. Was that what you were going to do, Councillor Jarvis? Okay, so I've got a proposer and a seconder. Any other debate, or should we move to the vote? Okay, let's move to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, moving to the next application, which is 0390. This is for, again, works for a tree protected by a TPO.
Thank you. This is for works to tree on the corner of Convent Lane, Witherley Road. It's proposed to lift the crown of a yew tree so it doesn't impede the adjacent pedestrian walkway. And there's no objection from Warwickshire Forestry, and therefore, in this instance, recommendation is consent be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Jarvis.
I'm not to move the recommendation as printed.
Thank you. I'll second that. Councillor Daly, second. Any vote, or do you want to move straight to the vote? Move straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next, which is another TPO.
Yeah. Thank you. Again, works to a group of trees here that are causing neighbour issues as well as impact on the carriageway. Again, Warwickshire County Council have no objection to the proposal, and the recommendation is as in front of you for consent.
You comment, it's Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Chair. This being in my ward, it's pleased to note, which I've forgotten, that the land is actually owned by North Warwickshire Borough Council, so approve support about the trees. What I would ask, if I can, through Mr. Collison, is that he's familiar with that area and works that we've been carrying out over the last year from across the road. That particular area, the frontage of that particular land, it's been quite damaged by various vehicles, and I wonder, through you, Chair, to Mr. Collison, whether we could instruct some people to have a look at that to see what might be able to be done to try and improve that area. Thank you.
Noted. I'll try and move that forward. I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Any more comments? Of the proposer for the recommendation? Councillor Waffles, second that. Councillor Ridley or Councillor Gilpin. All those in favour? That is moved. Thank you. Right, next application is 0091. This is the land between Rush Lane and Fanworth Road in Kingsbury. We have two speakers on this book. Mr. Collinson, if you'd like to do your report first, and then we'll move to the speakers.
I'm afraid you've got me, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, good, Mr. Brown. Well, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members will have seen this report and this case earlier on, as is indicated in the agenda item back in April, and a copy of that report is appended to the report that you have now in front of you. The application is for the removal of two conditions, as you can see, and this is described in previous report. Just as a reminder, Andrew's put up the site visit, it's the site location on the screen there, but I don't need to go through that with you. The first point to make is that this application is for removal of two conditions, and therefore the remit of this board is to look at that particular case. It is not to review the grant of planning permission for this particular development. That exists, and that cannot be removed tonight. You're looking at the removal of two conditions, and therefore the letters that we've received in respect of extra HGG traffic through Kingsbury and Dosthill is not appropriate on this particular occasion. That's already was dealt with when you dealt with the application originally for the original grant of planning permission. The whole matter here is to do with noise. As members be aware of the residential accommodation at Ascot Drive north of this particular site. Members have visited the site on two occasions, and in fact they have visited residents' properties as well to note the proximity and the particular issues that those residents had. As a consequence, the report goes into some detail on noise issues, as you can see, not only from the applicant, but also the residents have commissioned their own noise consultants, and that report has been circulated. Further, the objectives have certainly come back as the end of last week with their comments on the reports that have been received from the Environmental Health Officer and the applicant. And those were circulated over the weekend by Andrew to members of the Planning Board, and you should have seen those.
The applicant and the environmental health officer have come back on those residents' comments, and the general message is that there is no change to their position. And particularly, and the one I would give weight to is the environmental health officer, our own environmental health officer, who is saying that there's no objection to the removal of the two particular conditions. I know that the residents will be speaking to you later on this evening, and there are a couple of points I wish to make, and they refer to the comments that are actually put into the email that was sent round to members over the weekend. One of the first comments was that the residents, noise consultants, established in their view that there were inaccuracies and inconsistencies between the two parties, particularly in relation to the original noise assessment. There's real concern from the residents that those perceived inaccuracies and inconsistencies should not be taken forward when we look at the detailed arrangements for this particular site. My response to that is that there is a condition, as you can see attached, 8B, which is one of the revised conditions that we're looking at, is where we're saying that the scope of future noise and impact appraisals should be agreed by the council. The environmental health officer is very, very aware of the residents' case and the residents' arguments that there are inconsistencies and inaccuracies. So the environmental health officer will understand that when he looks at the scoping exercises that are coming in. Additionally, I've got no issue at all with the residents being consulted on that that there's the scoping exercises that are coming in, so that they can have their say and ensure that they properly address the issues which they have raised. I think so. The first point I want to make is I think that the residents' concern about matters not being inaccuracies and inconsistencies being taken forward will be addressed through that particular condition and the way we operate under that condition. And secondly, one of the concerns is that whilst we have noise impact appraisals coming in on individual occupiers, individual plots, the concern of the residents was this doesn't take effect, doesn't take account of the cumulative impact of a number of developments, a number of occupiers, and the overall setting of the site. There are conditions on that relating to future noise appraisals. I would just like to, Mr. Chairman, to add to the conditions that an extra phrase in the sense that the appraisals do have a scope for the occupier and the use that's going to be made of that plot, but should also take account of the cumulative impact of its setting. So that will be written into the recommendations and the conditions if that is carried tonight, Mr. Chairman. So therefore, that particular issue raised by the residents is covered by condition, and that's the way forward, Mr. Chairman. The recommendation doesn't change apart from the additional wording I've just referred to, Mr. Chairman. It's a very detailed report, a full detailed report on the noise issues, and I'm sure you'll hear from both applicant and objector on those particular issues as you listen to the debate, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Barnsley, welcome back. We will just remind you, I know you're aware of public speaking.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You've got 3 minutes to speak. At the 2 minute marker, I'll remind you that you've got 1 minute remaining. I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you very much. So thanks, Jeff, for the introduction. That's probably helped clarify some of the points. So I'm going to talk to you about two conditions separately. So condition 25 to start with. Broadly speaking, we were in agreement of the revised condition in the end. But as you outlined, we are concerned about how we go forward. We've had to commission our own noise assessment to be technical review to be carried out to highlight there is inaccuracies and differences depending on how you look at it. And it stands in favour of when some of you councillors are still in our street on a quiet Thursday afternoon, that there is going to be some impact, and it's not being shown from a resident perspective, it's being shown from an applicant perspective. So we going forward don't want to be in a position where we have to commission further technical report. we're a group of residents, we've had to raise a considerable amount of money between us to highlight things that should really have been highlighted by the EHO in the first place. Another thing is the access road. That doesn't really relate to condition 8 because it's in between the development and Ascot Drive. So anything we can do with units to try and mitigate noise won't affect the access road there in between. So there's nothing to be done there. Condition 26 then, so the residents would still primarily request that we retain as it is today. It was part of the 2010 application and granted, and if that had been built out, it would exist today, and that condition would exist today. That's would 25 in that respect, but still, yeah, we could be applying that today. There's been talk of individual noise plans, but we haven't been shown what an individual noise plan would look like.
1 minute remains.
So that was from the EHO. And there's also been a suggestion to leave it all to statutory noise complaints. Well, let's not go down that route. The domestic dwellings that were planned on that big land was rejected off the basis that statutory noise complaint can come in. When there've been over 30 people contribute towards the noise reports. So you're talking 30 people are going to be objecting, they're going to be sending complaints straight off. So based off that, I don't think we're really in a position at the moment to go forward with granting this. And also we haven't been able to consult back with our noise consultant following the HO response today when I was thinking about 4 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker? So did you say that condition 25, which is the 8 vehicles between 2300 and 0700, you were happy, you were content with that being removed, but it was the reversing noise effect, or the reversing sound that you still had an issue with? Yeah, and I guess I thought, just following up, and did Mr. Brown's kind of assurances that any noise kind of levels will be cumulative, so therefore taking considered the whole site? Does that make any?
That's certainly something we've campaigned, and that's something that our RSKOGs have highlighted should be analysed through any further noise assessments. But yeah, broadly speaking, we're in agreement with it. The nervousness is around how those noise reports will be reported, and I thank you, Jeff, for putting that there, that will be consulted. But we need some real good. At the moment, some differences of opinion, inaccuracies between the two noise consultants, and they haven't been fleshed out fully, and that's identified by WHS and EHO that there's things that aren't understood. Well, we need to get to a point where we can all agree that this is going to have an impact to the residents, or it is the residents know there's going to be an impact. We know there's going to be an impact. I've got a noise meter application on my phone. It's not certified, it's not regulated. And if I do any just metering outside my house, which is right next to where the noise detectors were put in and the noise assessments were created, the averages that I take are on the cusp. The limits that are applied in the, I think it's 9 or 10, whichever one it is that relates to the decibel rating, 35 or 40 decibels, 35 overnight. So we have very little confidence that what is going to be reported out is going to support us. And then when it gets built out, and we will have to complain about it, we're then going to have to wait for those noise assessments to be carried out, and then agree or disagree on that particular day that it was a problem. So condition 26, that takes away the reversing buzzers, that is the condition that is really, really going to help the neighbours, the residents, because we're not going to hear the reversing buzzers. At night when the windows are open in the peak of summer. We don't have that today. yes, there's existing industrial operations in the area, but they're 160 metres, 250 metres away from my house, which is on the outskirts of the residential estate. We just don't have that today. If you look at the layouts of those industrial developments, they don't have reversing bays. They have one in, one out systems, that sort of thing. So we know we're going to get impacted by it. Condition 26, that really helps the neighbours and the residents have that quality of life that isn't going to be reversing buzzers over and over and over all night.
Thank you. Any other questions for the speaker? And obviously we're going to have the applicant next, so hopefully they'll be able to pick up some of those concerns and points. So thank you very much. I think we've got Mr. Courtier. My colleague will explain public speaking, which I'm sure you've heard a few times now.
Good evening. If you don't already know, you've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2 minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding, and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you and good evening, councillors. I'm here tonight alongside Stuart Black, Development Director of Summits, the applicant and owners of the sites, and Neil Morgan, the applicant's acoustic consultant. We're more than happy to answer any questions between us to aid your consideration of this application. Following the grant of the outline consent last year, Summits have undertaken marketing of the site. The recurring feedback from commercial operators was that the imposition of conditions 25 and 26 places an undue restriction upon operations. Consequently, Summits have been unable to progress towards the delivery of this scheme, which will generate significant investment and job opportunities for the area, both during construction and operational phases. As detailed within the author's report, the conditions that are currently drafted are imprecise and unenforceable. They restrict vehicle movements when there is no technical basis to do so. They will create operational difficulties restricting the type of vehicle that can attend the site for what is likely to be a multi-tenanted site. As a compromise, Summits are willing to accept amendments to the other noise-specific planning conditions as described within the author's report. In particular, this will require the submission of noise impact appraisals at reserved matter stage and any subsequent change of tenant. This noise appraisal will identify internal and external noise impacts arising from the occupation, as well as identify any noise mitigation required to ensure no material impact upon nearby residents. In our view, this compromise is better for all parties, as it allows continued monitoring of the development noise impact by the council through consideration of these appraisals at a time when site configuration has been established and tenant operational requirements are known, which they are currently not. Both planning and environmental health officers at the council agree with this approach. Throughout this process, Summits have shown willingness to engage with neighbouring residents to find a solution. Summits are not trying to avoid their responsibilities here of being a good neighbour. Rather, consider the conditions as now set out within the officer's report would far better capture and address issues of noise without negatively impacting upon the commercial success of the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Perhaps a technical question for myself. Obviously, condition 26 talks about HGV reversing on the sounders. Can HGVs turn those off?
Yes, I believe they can turn them off, but it does depend on the type of vehicle accessing the site. I don't know. Could I possibly bring in Neil, the acoustic?
No, yeah. It's curious to know how that would be managed anyway.
I think one point to say in that, my understanding is you can turn them on in the cab within the lorry. This is a multi-tenanted scheme though, and it's placing a condition upon, we don't know the current occupiers of those units, so it's and equally what suppliers and deliveries they may have. So it's placing an undue burden and restriction upon any vehicle attending that site, which may be outside of the control of those tenants, and equally it's very, very difficult to enforce them by the council. I don't know if Neil wants to add anything.
Are you happy for me to speak from here, or?
Yeah, if it gives us some clarity, yeah.
Yeah, the concern with that condition really is that the businesses could have third-party vehicles coming in over which they wouldn't have operational control necessarily. But it could be wrapped up in a noise management plan to minimise the use of those reverse alarms where possible, for it does raise the health and safety concern. If they should have to switch the reverse alarm off, then run over someone that didn't need a vehicle reverse, and that was the primary reason for looking to remove that. The one thing I would say is the units will be designed, and they are conditioned to be designed in such a way that any reversing vehicle will be screened from the houses on Ascot Drive by the built form of the development, so you will effectively get the massing of the building directly behind the vehicle. So we will actually minimise and reflect the sound away from those properties. And besides which, I think we could maybe have a worst case perception of what could be going on here. I don't think we're looking at, we're not talking about frequent vehicle reversing manoeuvres. The units that are closest to Ascot Drive, the several smaller units. So I wouldn't envisage there to be a high number of vehicles associated with those anyway. We just need that restriction to be lifted for operational reasons, health and safety reasons, and to cover the incidents of third-party vehicles arriving at the site.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions? Sorry, Mr. Barnsley, you can't come back in at this stage. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we will move to the debate. Any comments from any of the councillors about any concerns? Councillor Wapples and then Councillor Jens.
Not sure if this is possible, but would it be possible to have almost like a trial period? I don't know if that's a potential in our planning board, like so you could trial it for a little while and see how it went down, and if, as the gentleman behind me has said, they don't, because I can see both sides of this, you see, and I'm just thinking if you've got very limited control over the tenants' third parties, it's difficult then to police it, isn't it really? However, I do see the resident side as well, but I'm just thinking, if they're saying that it would be limited anyway, and the residents are thinking worst case scenario, and that's not what they're saying, then is there a potential for a trial period? I don't know if that exists, and maybe I'm going to be laughed at now, but it was worth a shot.
I have no idea. Mr. Constant, and also Mr. Brown.
I thought that was going my way, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Joe.
The answer is no, Mr. Chairman. The reason for that is because the conditions already allow for each particular occupier to do a noise impact assessment together with associated mitigation measures and come up with a noise management plan. And that is monitored by further conditions. Subsequent occupiers have to go through that same process. So therefore our environmental health officers, together with the objectives, will be able to see the process in coming to that noise management plan and also be involved in the monitoring if they're necessary. So the actual conditions and the management and operation of the occupiers on the site is very much governed by those conditions. And if environmental health officers are saying that it's going to create noise levels above the threshold, then they won't be supporting it. So it's a different way of looking at it. But what I'm basically saying, Mr. Chairman, is that the controls are there through the amended conditions that we're recommending.
Thank you. Can I just clarify? And what also adds weight to that is this cumulative impact of the noise. It's not just assessing one company or one unit in its own thing. It's assessing the noise overall.
If the board agrees to that addition, then yes, Mr. Chairman. But in any event, a noise impact appraiser will take account of the setting anyway. But it does actually focus minds if that is actually put into that phrase put into the condition.
That's a valid.
I take it then from the management noise management plan that then gives companies the opportunity, as Councillor Muffles was talking about, can't do a trial, but if there is significant noise or whatever, then that I take could be adjusted because of the plan that's been in place, that condition. So that gives a good fallback position. Oh, it actually has increased. We need to do this to remediate. I'm seeing Jeff, Mr. Brown nodding, so that sounds good to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my understanding, that if something changed and the noise significantly increased above a threshold, then there would be an obligation for something to be done. For it to be stopped. Councillor Jens.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Last year I did vote against this, and what troubles me is that we're arguing about what may be, because these sites have said they've not been developed. There's no tenant for them at the moment, so we're arguing about what could be, and that what will be, and what if I've taken from what Jeff has said, we've moved on to say that if when these sites are set and they've got customers for it, we can revisit that site and look at the noise development then and how it affects the people and how it affects the area. And as for the vehicles through the Kingsbury or Dostal, the road's there, and I'm afraid we'll be stuck with the development anyway. So I just think we're arguing around this noise argument for what may be. I mean, there may not be anyone there with lorries, as the guy just said, that there may not be a customer there that uses these reversing beepers, and they may be, there are changes you can use them in cameras as well as the reversing. So the argument we're having is what may be. So we're never going to reach a conclusion on that, as far as I can see. And I think, as Jeff has explained, I think if the conditions are there to look at whenever there's a new a customer on there, and we can look at what's going to be used there, then that's the time to be looking at what the noise situation's like, not now. So I'm relaxed about it, to be honest.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Brown, perhaps I'll need your help here. My understanding of it is, picking up on Councillor Phillips's point about we'll do it when the whole point of that is the conditions are not in place now. The conditions would be in place if we took away those or condition 25 and 26, or the new test, sorry, should I say, will be in
The
place.
important thing that Councillor Perkins mentioned is that this particular proposal, this particular application and conditions set the framework for future developments. And that is what he's saying. They set the thresholds, they said how we will look at it, they set up the parameters, not just in terms of layout, but how we deal with the noise issues. So therefore, they have to be determined, those parameters have to be determined now, such that subsequent occupiers are completely aware of what they've got to do if they want to move on to this particular site. So Councillor Phillips is correct.
But what we've heard from the developer is that they're struggling to let with those conditions in place.
With those conditions in place, I understand it, they're comfortable with the amended conditions. That's as you're aware. If we're dealing with conditions, we have to formally consult applicants on conditions in any event. And you haven't heard from the applicant speaker this evening that they object to the amended conditions.
Right, okay. So in my own head, obviously, we've got the residents objecting to those conditions being removed, or 25 and 26 being removed. We've got the applicant who wants them removed, but is happy with the new conditions around cumulative noise and measuring, et cetera, and putting in place those measurements. But I think it's a fair comment about what does the reports look like. So what information are the residents going to get to be able to establish? I mean, yes, you can hear the noise, but sometimes actually having a physical report.
We heard a lot of Jeff said this evening, if I could just get you for just very shortly, we're going to be more involved, but that's new news to us and we don't know what that looks like. I've not seen that written down anywhere yet. We need some really good assurances before we go and do anything.
Okay. Go on, I will allow you to come back because I've allowed Mr. Barnes to come back.
I just want to offer some assurances that the noise appraisal that I envisage, not necessarily something that might generate more work for someone like myself. It might just be a summary of type of operations that are going to go in there, which may not necessarily be intrinsically noise generating. If they are intrinsically noise generating, then that occupier will want to make sure that when they move in, they don't become a nuisance. So it's in their interest to engage in more detailed noise assessment and predictions, and then mitigation strategy and a full management plan. But like I said, it might be that the operator that wants to take up residency and in that unit might not have a particularly noise generating activity to go in there. So this is where when the size wouldn't fit all. The way I see it, it would be a negotiation process with the local authority to describe the nature of the business, of the proposed business in that premises, and would then agree a methodology at what would be appropriate proportional with the Environmental Health Department and with the stakeholders.
But overall, there is a cumulative dB level that if exceeded, something would need to be done.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The conditions in there set out that's what's in the thresholds. Yes.
Okay, cool. I think that's understand. Okay. Any more comments or debate? Okay, the recommendation from our officers is to approve removal of the conditions, removal of 25 and 26 with the additional conditions, including cumulative noise.
As I set out in the report, Mr. Chairman, together with that additional phrasing about cumulative impact, yes.
Okay. So, looking around the room, I have some very stony faces. Councillor Waffles.
Can I just ask Jeff, sorry, how long do you have to have an accumulation period for it to be a reasonable argument? So, are we talking a year's worth of data? Are we talking a month? So if we were to accept recommendation, how long do the residents then have to, potentially, if it was an issue, I'll use the word suffer in inverted commas, the potential if it was above threshold before you would recommend stepping in? Just so that we could be assured, how long do they have to have recordings of it? Do you know? I know you're not environmental health, but
I think we might be talking different directions here. A statutory noise nuisance is not something to be considered under planning legislation.
yeah, okay.
So therefore I can't answer that question.
Yeah,
Respecting
okay.
environmental
No.
health colleagues as to how long they would have to monitor it for it to become a statutory
Okay.
noise nuisance. It will depend on the actual circumstances at that stage.
Yeah.
It may be very quick, it may be very long. But for there to be a statutory noise, unless Sophia, you can help in terms of the evidence that might be available for statutory nuisances.
Sorry, Jeff, I did realise as soon as it came out of my mouth, I realised it wasn't environmental health, but
Yeah.
It depends on how much evidence we need, so it'll be a number of frequencies we'd have to go back at different times and levels. So it's dependent on what level of noise was capturing.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions or queries? Okay, well, I will, from the chair, I will move the recommendation as printed. Do I have a second?
It needs to be. Sorry, the as printed is included in the addition. Okay, yeah.
That absolutely includes the cumulative noise, etc.
And I'll
Thank you. So I've moved it, second of councillor Humphries. Do I have any other recommendations? Okay, so we'll move to the vote then. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, carried. Okay, thank you very much. Right, we will move on to the next one, which is the land at 290 metres east of Hams Hall. And that's a new battery storage site, and that's application 0227. And we have two speakers on this. Thank you, Emerson.
This application was considered in July of this year, and a site visit was carried out a couple of weeks ago. The application site extends approximately 2.5 hectares and is located northwest of the existing Hams Hall Industrial Estate. It lies approximately 2.1 kilometres from Coleshill Parkway Station and 700 metres southwest of the village of Lee Marsden. The site will be accessed by a private gate along Hams Lane, which is shown on the plans in front of you. Hams Hall substation is opposite, on the opposite side of Hams Lane, where there's a new National Grid building which is being constructed at the moment. In essence, the application includes battery container units, 40 in number, 20 electric cabinets, switchgear, power transformer with bund, an air reserve for harmonic filter, reactive power compensation, and a welfare room as well. The proposal will be used to accommodate 98 megawatts of battery energy storage for a period of 40 years. And the primary function of these battery energy storage facilities are to provide a standby electricity storage capacity for the local network at peak times through the connection to the existing network at Hams Hall and that power grid opposite the site. The selection here is due to that point of connection opposite the site, which is there. In terms of the considerations of the application, the site is in Greenbelt, and members are aware of the changes to the National Planning Policy Framework about grey belt land, and the officer's conclusion in the assessment in terms of whether this is grey belt is concluded within sections 5.5 and 5.12 of the report in front of you. come forward sooner rather than later. So in build. The proposal includes letters of support, 11 letters of support, however, an objection from Nether Whittaker Parish Council. The concerns from the Parish Council are that there was a previous refusal. However, this is different. Things have changed since the refusal for a larger property. It's now smaller. The volume is exactly the same as the converted building in terms of the exchange. It is a self-build unit. The altered siting is behind, is closer to the existing buildings. I think I'll have to try and say by wings almost. So looking at page 109 of 220, there's a comparison there of the two schemes. 8.6. Let's see if we've got a slide that says that. No. You can sort of see it there in terms of layout and position as well. It's smaller in terms of the width or length of it. It doesn't have a projection, and the position is obviously different. The size is comparable to the permission that was granted for conversion of the existing buildings. So it's comparable in terms of that size.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or any other comments on the application? So we have a recommendation from our officers to approve. Anyone wants to propose in that? To readily propose, I have a seconder. Councillor Fowler. Any other recommendations? Okay, all those in favour? Carried. Right, moving on. So that's all of the applications done. I think we're now into Richard. Right? DPOs, yes. Agenda item 7, which is for some tree preservation order in Water Autumn.
Thank you. Nothing to add to the recommendation.
There, have you seen this? How many trees did we look after to get rid of this?
Yeah, that's my eye on it. I'm not these. All this work should be done.
Okay, moving on. Move it. Councillor Jarvis has moved the recommendation. I second the Councillor Wapples. All those in favour to approve the recommendation? Yeah, that's carried. Okay, and then we have another. Yeah, big choice we have on.
Yeah, there's a lot of trees on that.
What we've got, Rob, with a whole.
Nothing to add to the recommendation.
On the next one.
Do the recommendation, Chair.
So we have one more recommendation. Let me get to the right.
Sorry. If you had a laptop, you'd be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Save the trees.
Save the trees. Yeah, so this is another tree preservation in Arley, Bingham Arley. We've got a move recommendation to approve it. I've seconded that. Councillor Clues, all those in favour?
Nice pop speech, yes.
No. We move to agenda item 9, which is an update on appeals.
Yes, thank you. Quick one. First two very good for us. Don't quite agree with the third one in Newton Regis, but we would move the recommendation. Clearly, our policies are working.
Yeah, and this is for us to note the report. We'll move that from the chair to have a seconder. Never seen so many hands. That's the third. All those in favour? Carried. Now we come to the main attraction. Yes, I'll do the introductions. Apologies, I should have done the introductions at the beginning, and it was very remiss of me. But having already met Nick earlier in the day, but this is Nick. Nick is our new director of planning. So it's going to be the title. So you'll be aware there's been some kind of proposed structure changes, and Nick's going to head up all things planning for his sins. You can see how excited he is. Look at that. What have I done? Full name? Oh, sorry, Nick Fenwick. Sorry. So welcome.
Thank you. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Oh, we'll soon change that. We'll soon change that.
Okay.
If he hasn't already, yeah.
Already done.
Yeah.
He's been promoted then, Chair, because I told Councillor Humphries that he was the planning manager.
No. That's reporting directing to yourself.
Yeah, that's the planning manager, that's the director.
Yeah, it's the director. Yeah.
You can get confused because look at the boy next to him. It's up in the boys' chair now.
Had a good start.
Moving on. Yes, good point. Good point. So, agenda item 10. This is being taken by yourself, I believe.
Yes, so soon. Take the report as read. There's a few decisions to make from the board. First one is whether you want to go out on for consultation on an article or direction as set out. The geographical area to which that direction may relate, subject to consultation. The period of consultation, we would generally say a sort of 6-week consultation, which is the general compact that we've signed up to for matters of consultation, albeit that sometimes planning matters have a slightly different one, and the various options are set out in the report. So it's up to the board to decide whether it wants to consult on an article for directions, what that geographical area is, and what period of consultation would be.
Thank you, Steve. Question again: do we have to consult?
Yes, the procedure is set out in the law, in the regulations is set out in the report. Yes, we do.
Just wanted to know because I don't. Yeah. So for those that come over, see Emma's wrecking the place.
I have that effect on this.
So if you're not aware, this was the request from the board and I guess a number of councillors previously to look at HMOs but there was lots of debate. And this, so at the moment, you can have a HMO under community development rights of 6 bedrooms and below. Anything above that comes, you have to submit a planning application. What became very clear was that we knew about the, we know we've got 17 HMOs of 7 and above, but we have no idea about how many HMOs we have across the borough of 6 and below. And what I will say, this was never about demonising HMOs. This is not about saying we don't want HMOs, because they play a very vital role to our economy, students, and all some very good uses of them. It was just about us getting a better handle and understanding. Councillor Ridley.
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify, you said 17, but
Oh.
it says 29 on the,
Oh, okay, that's me then.
is that 29 above the threshold? So requiring, that have required planning permission rather than the ones that are through permitted development, and we have no idea how many we have through permitted developments. Is that right?
My understanding is that that would be those that have actually had planning consent or come through the process, because 6 and below, you don't require planning consent, so you can just do that through permitted development one, which is what the Article 4 removes. It removes that permitted development right to just go out. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Brown?
This is just Mr. Maxey's report. My interpretation of that is 29 licenses. Councillor Ridley is confusing licenses with committed development rights. I think that's where.
Yeah, the licensing regime kicks in at 5. So it's 5 of that figure, of which Councillor Watson's probably right in terms of those that are above 6. But obviously the other bit of the sort of the unknown is what doesn't need licensing or kind of permission. We can only estimate that based on council tax records and other things.
Okay. And do we do that analysis through council tax records, or is it a bit of a?
Yeah, it's not 100% because not all the cases where it's genuine HIMO, the owner of the property should be liable, but and then usually passes that on through rent. Not every case has that been done, partly because it's that's sort of swinging roundabouts thing in terms of you either pay the council tax directly as tenants, or you don't, but then get it paid, get it put on the rent. So it's not a perfect example. But again, it's another piece of intelligence.
There's no piece. Okay, because I think the request was to do it borough-wide, so that we had a kind of view on what the borough, because we don't know, I guess, what we don't know. I think was one of the concerns, wasn't it? Yeah, because we could identify some of our, we're probably aware of our HMO areas. We know Dordon have a number of HMOs, but it's where we don't know, I guess. So does anybody else want to make a comment? Yes.
Mentioned 29 earlier, but I think it says 32 on page 2. So I'm not sure. I'm looking in the wrong
what
place.
page, sorry?
On 302. Where the table broken down by areas, it's 32 on that. Maybe 209. 209. So that is random. What should it be? Page 209. Yeah.
It's 32.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that. But I also, this came up at the exec board, and I raised concerns there that although this report is a lot more detailed than the one we had there, I'm still not really happy that it addresses my concerns. On the agenda for the exec board, there was an extract from the NPPF, which isn't in this report, and it did say in there that the use of Article 4 directions to remove national permitted development rights should in all cases be based on robust evidence and apply to the smallest geographical areas possible. Because of that, I have real concerns about applying it to the whole borough. We don't have robust evidence other than isolated pockets. And I'd be in favour of applying it in those areas where we know that we've got concerns because we have the evidence. But saying that we don't know, so we want to do it so that we know, there's no evidence there. And I struggle to see how we can justify it on a borough-wide basis.
Councillor Minor? Did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, we will confirm that those figures just to check which of those figures is right. That is the essence of the debate for members in terms of, you are right in terms of the concentration is shown in 2 areas. The concern, I suppose, on the other side of the argument is given the nature of the borough, whether or not, if it's targeted at two areas, that kind of highlights the other areas as available for that growth. I'm not saying which of those is right, but that's the debate, and then it's as to whether or not they want to preempt some.
Whether or not we can, we're satisfied that we've got robust evidence for the whole borough though.
Councillor Ridley.
Yeah, I'm sorry to come back on this. And you're quite right, it's not about demonising people that live in HMOs or have a concern about that sort of thing, not in the slightest. But I do worry that our housing, and nationally, not just North Warwickshire, is not delivering for a lot of people. Single men on their own, you know, sort of breakdown in a relationship or something that happens in their life. There is nowhere for them to go. There is not enough one-bedroom apartments, houses, whatever. Older people on their own, you know, people working transient, HS2 workers. There was a lot of HMOs setting up around that area. So I think it's important that we actually look at this so we can actually address the needs of our communities. You know, not just saying, oh, it's a load of HMOs, actually looking at how we can improve our quality of our housing and what we're delivering and what the people out there actually need. Thank you.
Thank you. And I quite agree with you. I think part of the process in my mind would be making sure that it's done properly, adequately, and, you know, all those good things that we look at when we bring something to the planning board to have considerations around. And I agree with Mr. Cleary. My worry is if you only do it in certain areas, and I do appreciate the fact around the Robusson, is it could force it to areas where the article was not in place, and therefore you still don't know. I guess is the worry. So let me just go Councillor Fowler, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Mark.
Thank you, Chair. This takes me back a little bit. Forgive me to this may not quite fit in with what you're talking about here. And so forgive me, for my time on Birmingham City Council, we had a situation where, well, myself personally in my ward, where we had a situation where a gentleman actually had rented accommodation, which he actually turned out the people who were renting at the time. And I called that he wanted to turn it to a HMO, which a lot of people around that area actually objected to. And then there was the threat by the owner of the property that if they didn't stop going against his HMO, he would then turn it into what is called, and I think this still hits potential Article 4, is into exempt accommodation. And I don't quite know and understand how that can affect people if a dwelling that is applied for a HMO is refused, and then that person actually could turn it into what they call exempt accommodation. In Birmingham, we actually joined it together because it caused a lot of difficulties. So both HMOs and exempt accommodation now are linked under Article 4. It's probably a bit long-winded, Chair, but I was trying to get an idea, if not now, another point, with what effect or impact this could have on people in various parts of North Warwickshire. Thank you.
I'm not sure if planning colleagues can assist in terms of that definition within planning. It may be exempt from rent controls or housing management.
We've not come across the exempt element in terms of planning it. When we look at things, it's all to do with what falls into the planning use class order. And certainly we haven't come across.
Could that have meant 6 and below? Could that have meant actually when they talk about exempt, could that have meant if I go below a number, I don't need to apply for that?
Terminology wise.
It may be to do with housing benefit. Colin just not class this where it's saying it's about where it's for vulnerable people who have care needs over and above their rent.
Thank you. It is about vulnerable people. Yeah, so we're going into an area.
That's cool. Councillor Barnett, I'll come back to you and then I'll come to Councillor Ridley.
Yeah, I mean, to come back on your points, I mean, I fully understand the concerns that you've got. I think my concern is that we need to have a policy in place that is actually going to be defensible. And I worry that if it's not based on robust evidence, and at some point down the line we, reject an application from HMO and they appeal it,
that the whole thing will get overturned if we haven't got sufficient backing behind it.
Okay, my understanding is if we rejected a HMO, it would be based under standard planning principles, not, and any objections and overturn would be based on a planning.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chair. A planning application would be determined on planning merits. That wouldn't itself overturn or withdraw the Article 4. The Article 4 to be revoked has got to go through a special, completely different procedure.
Okay.
If you do get I don't know, if you get a whole run of appeals being allowed for Article 4s, then after a planning commission, then you might want to revisit the merits on Article 4, but the two are completely separate.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Councillor Ridley.
I was just trying to be helpful necessarily, but I don't know if I am. It was just exempt accommodation was just specifically for people, vulnerable people, sort of we run by councils and charities and that sort of thing. That's what I understand by exempt accommodation.
Cool, thank you. Any more comments? Because the recommendations as in front of us is one for us to consider an Article 4. Also for us to confirm the geographical area we want the Article 4 to cover, if we want an Article 4, confirm the period of consultation, and then delegate power to the Chief Exec to finalise a direction notice.
Just to confirm, Chair, that obviously we will consult on this.
Yes.
And therefore a further decision, a final decision would be brought back. And so the issue of, for example, if we got lots of comments about the geographical area, again, that was something that members would look at. And there was also mentioned at the executive board about an equalities impact assessment, and that would come once a final decision was being made. And again, that might be helpful to pick. There might be equality issues that are raised through the consultation.
Okay, but we will address those at the consultation.
Exactly.
So for all of it, for in front of this board now, is the first question is: do we want to put in place? Do we want to proceed with an Article 4?
Do you want to proceed to consultation?
Yeah. Do we want to proceed to consultation and what geographical area? So let's do the first one. Do we want to look at an Article 4 that removes the PDR for HMOs? Can I see those in favour? Well, yeah, I'll propose. Councillor Ridley, second. See all those in favour? That looks like, yeah, it's carried. Okay. Then based on that, the second part of it is geographical area. My view would be that we do it borough-wide, so I'm happy to propose a borough-wide. Chair, so a second. It's Humphries with second. All those in.
Can I just make a point on that?
People can.
Yeah, sorry. I think it is, I understand what Keith's saying, but I think because we don't know what we don't know, we could be, if we're not careful, looking at an area that has no issues there. So if we do a borough-wide, and then we can decide, can't we, if we've got any need for it to change the geography, just so that we can get a feel for everything.
Right, so based on that, so I'm proposing borough-wide. I had a seconder from Councillor Humphries. Do I have any other proposals?
I guess I'll propose Dordon and Harts Hill then.
So Councillor Barnett, Dordon and Harts Hill, do I have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Chapman's second that. So we'll go to the, I suppose, Matt's, what order we take it in, Louis? So I'll take the first one. All those in favour of borough-wide? That's carried then, so we won't need to vote on the second. Okay, and then the consultation period, it's saying 8.2, it says
it's a minimum of 21 days.
21 days, yeah.
Oh, the suggestion was 6 weeks, as a sort of normal type consultation.
What people's views on consultation time? We're happy with to.
I think it's, as I say to you, we don't know what we don't know, so we need to give us a bit of time to gather the information anyway, don't we?
Yeah, so we're happy with a 6-week consultation?
Yeah.
Okay, you proposing that?
I'll propose that.
That's how it's proposed. Got a seconder. That's Gilman seconding. All those in favour of 6 weeks? Okay, and the final bit is obviously to delegate powers to our chief exec. To do all that. Any spare time? Can you do that before 10 o'clock tonight? Okay. All those in favour of delegating?
Chair, can I just add very quickly when we talked about exempt accommodation, and thank you for the leader for help on that. It's all coming back to me, as Simon says. The thing I had about it was that again, HMOs need planning permission, but exempt accommodation do not need, by recollection, they don't need planning permission. And that's what we did in Birmingham. We brought the two together because that's what people were doing. They couldn't get HMO, they turned it into exempt accommodation, which did cause problems there. Hope it doesn't do the same here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to move us to agenda item 11, which is the exclusion of the public and press. They're on their way. I'll just read it out. To consider whether in accordance with section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A for the Act. Move it. Opposed, second it. All those in favour? Okay. Yeah.